can't hang on, can we? Order, order. I call Ros Savage to move the motion, and I'll then call the Minister to respond. There will not be an opportunity for the member in charge to wind up, as is the convention for 30-minute debates. Order. Order. Ros Savage to move the motion.
Thank you very much. It is a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship. Today, we're addressing an issue of great importance, the proliferation of solar farms on our agricultural land. As many of you know, I've dedicated much of my life to raising awareness about our ecological and climate crises. I've met people who are set to lose their entire countries to rising seas. So let me be clear, nobody can doubt my commitment to strong action on climate change. But there are many ways to skin the climate cat. And I don't believe that solar parks on the scale of Cottam, Cleve Hill, Longfield, Mallard Pass, Gate Burton, Sonaker, and in my own constituency of the South Cotswolds, the proposed Limedown, are the best way forward. I've received numerous messages from residents near the proposed site of Limedown, and without exception, they've been distressed about the proposal, and I share their concerns. These are not NIMBYs. They're thoughtful, environmentally conscious people who, like me, agree that we need renewables, but at the right size, in the right places.
Will the Honourable Lady give way?
I will give way.
Like the Honourable Lady, I am very keen on renewable energy. I'm a Liberal Democrat, for heaven's sake. But I'm also a pragmatist, and in Washford, in my constituency, there's this massive solar farm that's being built on particularly good agricultural land. Would the Honourable Lady agree with me that we must be practical and put them on commercial buildings and residential houses rather than on farmland?
I thank my honourable friend for her intervention, and I do totally agree, and we'll be coming to that point shortly. I was just saying that we need these projects to be at the right size, in the right places, and in the right ownership. I will give way.
Can I commend the Honourable Lady for bringing this forward? I suppose there's a twofold issue to look at. Number one, farmers who sign up to solar farms are committed to a long-term lease, and that will impact in relation to the family inheritance tax potential. But the other thing is in relation to using land better for food production, as it should be. Only land that is of a lesser quality or a rocky land would be more suitable for solar farms. And does the Honourable Lady agree that is the way forward?
I thank the honourable member for his intervention, and I would agree that that is the way forward. Let us consider the facts. Our agricultural land is dwindling at an alarming rate. We're down to 14.8 million acres of arable land, the lowest since World War II, and we're losing nearly 100,000 acres annually. We already import nearly 60% of our food. Do we really want to increase that dependency on foreign supply chains? I would give way.
Been super generous. I'm really grateful to her. You make an excellent point. We obviously have means in which we can control how these things happen through the ELMS payment scheme and through planning law. So would she agree with me that by both of those streams, we should be able to ensure that food security is at least as important as energy security, and we should not be using productive agricultural land for solar panels, for solar farms, when they can be developed elsewhere? Westmoreland Furness Council, for example, has used disused land to provide a solar farm of their own on non-agricultural land.
I would indeed agree with my honourable friend that we should be prioritising locations that do not impact on our ability to meet our food security needs. The environmental benefits of solar farms are not as clear-cut as some would have us believe. Yes, they do produce clean energy, but at what cost? Large installations can alter local ecosystems, potentially contaminate soil, and even increase local temperatures due to heat absorption by the dark panels. And let's not forget the human cost. Tenant farmers face eviction, land values are skyrocketing, making it harder for new farmers to enter the industry. And we risk losing the very character of our rural communities that underpins local tourism and our national identity. I will give way.
I'm grateful to the Honourable Lady for giving way. I actually agree with every word she has said so far, but would she agree with me that if we are to protect food security, if we are to give it that equal billing with energy security and national security, it's not just solar installations that are inappropriate, but it's the ancillary projects that I'm seeing in my constituents, such as battery storage, and then National Grid coming along and saying they've got to completely rebuild all of the substations. Guess what? On more agricultural land. It's a much bigger problem than just solar.
I thank the Honourable Member for his intervention and absolutely agree with his points. However, I'm not against solar energy, far from it, but we do need to be smart about how we implement it and all of the associated infrastructure. Why not require all new homes to be fitted with solar panels, as proposed by my honourable friend, the member for Cheltenham, in his Sunshine Bill? Why not use the vast roof spaces of warehouses, public buildings and car parks? These are sensible, minimally intrusive ways to contribute to our net zero goals.
Would you give way on that point?
I will give way on that point.
I will confess that prior to being elected to this place, I spent 10 years in renewable energy finance, and it's a common claim from certain activists and newspapers that we should put it on commercial buildings. I don't disagree with that. The problem is the economics of it don't stand up from a finance perspective until the government actually steps in to guarantee a minimum export amount of value for export. Rooftop solar will never stack up, neither will carport solar. That's why investors will always go for utility scale. Does she agree with me that if we actually want to see a catalyst, if we want to see a change, if we want to see farmers growing crops and not solar panels, the government needs to step in and regulate this market?
I thank my honourable friend for his intervention. He makes some very interesting points that I look forward to exploring further with him in the future. And I do agree with his main point that we do need government to intervene to adjust the incentives so that we are able to meet our energy needs with the lowest cost to our countryside.
And on that point, would you give way?
I will give way.
Thank you. And given that part of the barriers to public acceptance of large-scale solar farms comes from a need to see this joined-up approach and that we're balancing both food security and energy security, that what people like to see, for example, in my constituency with the large Kingway solar farm being proposed, is the much-promised land use framework coming forward and the strategic spatial energy framework, so that they know where that 0.1% should go and that it's going in the right places. There's a joined-up approach, and therefore reasonable people, can support this where necessary.
I thank my honourable friend for her intervention, and I'm sure we are all awaiting with bated breath the long-awaited land use framework. The National Farmers Union are well aware that British farmers host about 70% of this country's solar generation capacity, but they're urging this government to recognise that small-scale energy needs to be prioritised on brownfield sites and lower quality land first. And let's not forget about other nature-based solutions like rewilding or planting 60 million trees per year. This would not only help absorb carbon, but also restore valuable habitats. We do need to increase our use of renewables. However, this must be done sympathetically to the environment and should provide as a priority community energy to homes, schools and businesses. We have a real opportunity with the land use framework to define our national priorities for the long-term future, emphasising ways of multi-purposing land with ideas like intercropping, living roofs and rooftop solar. And we absolutely need cross-party consensus. This question of meeting future energy needs, while not trashing either the climate, our countryside or food production, is too important to become a political football. The English countryside is currently at risk of being exploited for financial gain by profit-making companies, a corporate wolf dressed up in green clothing. We must not allow this to continue unchecked. Thank you very much.
This House has considered solar farms on agricultural land. Minister.
Morning. It is a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship, of course. Can I begin by congratulating the Honourable Lady for securing this very important debate and the number of interventions that she received in such a short period of time reflects the strength of feeling here. And look, can I just start, before sort of setting out the government's approach to this more widely, by just reassuring the Honourable Lady and her constituents that we agree on most things, I think, in this space. We agree that we should be using renewables, whatever they are, wherever they are, in the best way possible. We agree that we need to look at our responsibilities in terms of the climate, our responsibilities in terms of agriculture and the countryside and food production. These are all responsibilities that the government take very seriously and look at very carefully. We agree that we should build, if we're building solar panels as an example, we should build on brownfield sites first. If we can't, we should build on areas that are lower quality land first. And we agree that food security is enormously important for this country, and the global conditions that we find ourselves in, where there's more uncertainty, and we saw that with the war in Ukraine and what followed with our energy prices, that we do need to be mindful of all of these things. So I think we come from a place where actually, when it comes to the principles, we agree. I wanted to just set out the government's overall approach to our clean power mission that might help set this in context. We've been clear from the start, as the Honourable Lady is, I think, as well, that the only way to tackle climate change and to secure our energy supply and to bring down bills and drive economic growth is through clean energy. And the rapid deployment of clean energy infrastructure is essential for the future of our security and economy. I will give way.
I'm grateful to the Minister for giving way on that. But isn't it the case that what this current government is doing is just plumping for the technology that's right now available in the form of thousands of acres of solar, when you need 2,000 acres of solar panels to produce enough electricity for just 50,000 homes on current usage, but an SMR, a small modular reactor, just needs 2 football pitches for 1 million homes. Why on earth is the government messing about with solar, given the impacts that has, as the Honourable Lady said, and as I've made many times, that impact on food security?
Well, the previous government messed around with solar quite a lot. I think we are building on what the previous government did up to a point. Look, I think the answer here is to look at all of the technologies that are available to us. And of course, SMRs are enormously attractive in lots of different ways. And lots of colleagues in this place have been talking to us about SMRs. And there is a process, as he knows, for the development of them. The tools that we need in our armoury are all of them, and we need to make sure we're using the most modern technology available. He makes a fair point on that front. Sustainable power generated here in Britain will reduce our contribution to the damaging effects of climate change. It will reduce our dependence on the volatile global fossil fuel market and create thousands of highly skilled jobs, which it is already doing and will continue to do. So instead of delaying the inevitable, we've set ourselves this target to push to clean power by 2030. And the Clean Power Action Plan that was published last month sets out how we're going to get there, including the likely technology mix required. And it's clear that solar will play a major role. Yes, I will give way.
Richard Fuller.
Thank you very much, Sir Desmond. Just on the Minister's comments about the government's announcements in December and the subsequent announcement by NESO about moving forward rapidly with renewable energy, and relating to East Park Energy, which is a proposal in my constituency, which has 74% use of a best and most versatile land. In neither the December statement nor the January announcement by NESO was there any reference at all to the criterion of the use of best and most versatile land. Can she just affirm that that criteria is still used in the assessment of which projects the government move forward?
Can I thank him for his intervention? I can't comment on his individual case in his constituency, of course. But of course, when developers are applying for planning permission, they go through a series of criteria and have to adhere to a series of criteria, whether it's for the small development of smaller solar plants where it goes through local authorities, or whether it's through the nationally significant infrastructure project process. And we will ensure going forward, and the Solar Panel Task Force is looking at all of these issues as well, that we are making sure we are mindful of all of the range range of issues that we need to consider when we are looking at bringing infrastructure into communities. And I think I will come to this later, but it is really important to say, you know, we want to do this with local communities and with consultation with local communities, with considering what other options are available to us as well. So that will continue. If I just make a bit of progress, if I could just make a little bit of progress, just mindful that we don't have very much time, but perhaps I'll come back to him in a few minutes. So solar is one of the cheapest sources available to us as well, which is an important consideration when we're looking at all of the range of options that we have between us. We are setting a target for around 45 to 47 gigawatts of solar power by 2030, which is up from the 17 gigawatts that we have today. And that is a substantial increase. I want to tackle the issue that a number of members mentioned in terms of the rooftop versus ground mount issue. And, you know, I think the Honourable Lady is right to talk about how we need to be going further to make sure we are putting solar panels on our roofs, and what can government do to encourage that. So we are bringing in new building standards to ensure that all newly built houses and commercial buildings are fit for a net zero future. We expect these standards to encourage the installation of solar panels on new developments, and we're issuing a call for evidence later this year on the construction of solar on outdoor car parks. The reconvened solar task force is focusing on rooftop solar, and further actions to increase deployment will be set out in the roadmap this spring. I was talking to one of our big mayoral authorities yesterday as well about the power purchase agreements that you could potentially have in this space if you look at the kind of public sector roofs and the collaboration you could have across some of our transport infrastructure, some of our public sector infrastructure. You could be doing more ambitious projects when it comes to solar, and of course we want to push that as much as we can. If we can put solar panels on rooftops, then that is what we want to do. But we consider that we need a mix of both. We need ground mounted and we need rooftop to get to the numbers that we want to see. Turning to the planning system, all proposed solar projects are subject to a rigorous planning process which considers the interests of local communities, as I said to the honourable gentleman before. Yes.
Ben, in my constituency in Huntingdon, we have a new solar farm proposed at 1,900 acres. It spans from my constituency across into North Bedfordshire, which my honourable friend here represents as well. The local population have spent a lot of time liaising with both myself and my honourable friend with regards to the impact that it's going to have and the lack of consultation that they've received. They've been told that they're realistically going to receive no real benefit from the solar farm being there. They're certainly not going to receive directly cheaper energy bills for having it built right on their doorstep. I wondered what the Minister would say to those constituents and also the constituents of the other members in this room who are effectively having nationally significant infrastructure projects foisted upon them, and the fact that they don't feel that they have a say or any real ability to push back on this.
Can I thank the honourable gentleman for his intervention, and I think he expresses a concern that local members of Parliament will always have when constituents come to them with issues. And look, we are balancing an issue here when it comes to solar. So at the moment, about 0.1% of all our land in the UK, and it turns out about 0.1% of all agricultural land as a proportion as well, has solar on it. So even if we were to reach our targets and go beyond, it would still be less than 1% of land. So we have that statistic to look at, but then we have the local situation to look at too, right? Which is where we absolutely accept that we are asking people to have infrastructure in their communities that will affect them, will change their view, will change their roles, will change the jobs that are available. It has an impact. So we are looking through our Clean Power Action Plan at what are those community benefit systems that we need to set in place. Now, I can't speak to his particular case because it's going through the process and it wouldn't be right for me to do so. But I am mindful of what he's saying about the need for communities both to feel like they're going to have some direct benefits, but also to understand why we need some of this infrastructure. And the reality is that we haven't created and kept up to speed with infrastructure developments in this country over the last couple of decades, we need to move faster, whether it's our grid system, whether it's our renewable energy, whether it's our transport systems. We need to build these things for our future, for our children, for our grandchildren, to have the future that we want to see. And of course, we need to be mindful of how local people feel and the impact it has. And that's why, for the big national planning infrastructure, nationally significant infrastructure projects, there is still, of course, consultation and it's strong engagement with communities, and that needs to get better. And we are looking at that through our Clear Power Action Plan. I'm mindful of the time. I want to move on to food security, which the Honourable Lady mentioned. So food security is national security. It's very important for this government. We need a resilient and healthy food system that works with nature and supports British farmers and fishers and food producers. And that's why this government will introduce a new deal for farmers to boost rural economic growth and strengthen Britain's food security. Yes.
The concern is that farmers often are pushed into things that they would not choose initially, for example, giving over productive agricultural land for stuff that's not food production. Because of the perversity of government funding changes, perhaps the most egregious thing that happened in the budget is the 76% cut in the basic payment this year for farmers, which many of them will make them feel that their hand is forced to go down a direction they don't really want to. Might you have a word with the Treasury to see whether that could be looked at and that cut taken away?
Well, I heard the honourable gentleman in the point, right honourable gentleman in the point that he made. And look, the wider point about farmers over the years, being pushed according to whatever the EU subsidy was or the local subsidy was, is of course right, and we need to get this balance right. And I would just speak to the numbers again, that we are looking to go from 17 to sort of 35, which is a kind of trebling of what we have now. It's currently 0.1% of the land use. So we are talking small numbers, although I appreciate in constituencies it feels much bigger, because there will be some constituencies where there are more, like the Honourable Ladies, more of these products coming along. And of course we need to get our system right for farmers. I am a Member of Parliament in Croydon, where we do not have many farmers, but I am incredibly grateful to the work that our farmers do and the important role that they have, and we need to make sure we're supporting them. And where we develop agricultural land, where it's necessary, and we need to start with the basics of using other land first where we can. Where it is needed, we do not think it will have any significant impact on food security because of just the numbers. The 0.1%, less than 1% of the UK's agricultural land will be occupied by solar farms. We do not believe that will have an impact on our food security. And just to finish my point here, because it is connected and it speaks to the point that the Honourable Lady made when she started, the biggest threat to British farmers in the countryside is not solar panels, it's from the impact of climate change and the effects that we're already seeing in terms of floods and droughts that are already threatening the livelihoods of our farmers. So we have to be mindful of that when we are also then trying to tackle climate change and put the use of solar in there.
Thank you, Sir Desmond, and thank you very much to the Minister for giving way. I appreciate the principles that she's setting out, particularly on the impact of climate change on food security. And every model of net zero energy that I've seen does include a greater role for renewable energy on land. But isn't the risk that without a clear land use strategy in place that shows how we'll achieve a resilient food supply whilst also meeting net zero targets, that decisions on solar farms and where they're located end up getting made on a piecemeal basis rather than on the basis that the Minister's setting out?
The Honourable Gentleman has predicted what I was about to start talking about, which is the land use framework. Because of course, it's right. The government recognises that England has limited land With it comes demands for what it's used for, including our vital clean energy infrastructure. And delivering our manifesto commitment, the government will introduce a land use framework to consider how we balance competing demands and transform how we use land. And this will support economic growth and deliver on the plan for change that was outlined by the Prime Minister last month. But the framework will work hand in hand with the Strategic Spatial Energy Plan, which we've also commissioned the National Energy System Operator, NESO, to devise. So he's right, we have to understand the whole before we make piecemeal decisions. And I think you know, that would be, I would say, a criticism of the previous government, that those kind of overarching plans were lacking. Yes.
And specifically on that point, would it therefore be right to consider that we don't overrule perhaps the planning inspectorate just now in the build-up to receiving the land use framework and the strategic spatial energy plan from NESO before making these big infrastructure decisions? I think that would take the public with us if they understand that once we've got the land use framework and the strategic spatial energy plan, that's the time to then decide where those solar farms go.
Can I thank her for her comments? I think we already have a planning system which enables us to look at individual projects. We have come in new as a new government and will be setting those strategic frameworks. We have to allow the legal processes to continue while we do that. But the push to 2030, the increase that we're going to see, and what happens beyond that as well, of course, we want to see through good government a proper national framework that sets these issues in place. And I just am aware of the time, and I need to give the Honourable Lady... No, I do not need to give the Honourable Lady a couple of minutes, so I will carry on talking. Just to touch again on the community benefits issue, I know it's been raised already by members. Look, and I can't stress enough that communities hosting clean energy infrastructure are doing a service to our country, and they need to benefit from that. Now, you can argue we will all benefit in the long term with energy prices coming down and having more energy security, but there are many ways in which communities directly can benefit, including community funds, direct payments, as well as community ownership, and we are exploring all these options, and we will have more to say on this soon. And in the meantime, Great British Energy will support community energy schemes, helping communities to unlock opportunities through the local power plan, which will support, as you know, local authorities and community energy groups and others to deliver small and medium-scale renewable energy projects, and could develop up to 8 gigawatts of clean power by 2030. So to conclude, I want to thank the Honourable Lady for securing the debate, thank Honourable members for their very thoughtful interventions. We remain as government committed to balancing the urgent need for renewable electricity with considerations of land use, food production and community benefit. We want to take people with us on this journey and see us going into the future with a mix of renewable energy that delivers the lower prices that we want to see.
Order. The question is that this House has considered solar farms on agricultural land. Those that are of that opinion will say aye. Of the contrary, no. The ayes have it, the ayes have it. Order, order. The sitting is suspended until 2:30 this afternoon.